So, how many of you know what is SAP? And how many don't know anything about SAP? That's great. So, uh, like I'm working in an ERP scan company, which is specialized on the SAP security, and we do a lot of research in this area. We also have the product for analyzing this SAP security from different areas. And we speak a lot at the different conferences, like just 3 days ago we came from the internal SAP Security Summit. It was very interesting topic. And yeah, we have more than 60 acknowledgements from the SAP for the finding different vulnerabilities in their products. Uh, so today I will be speaking about the SAP portal. It's like the application which is usually can be accessed from the internet. So that's why it's a portal. And how to get access to this application through the vulnerabilities of the other services and also through the vulnerabilities of the portal itself. So again, if you don't remember, the SAP is like a company which make the business software. It's like software where all the business critical data is stored, like financial, HR data, and etc. So if somebody will want to break your company, it's probably the best way to do it is to attack the SAP system. And a little bit of our research that we've done, it's like we make a scan of the all the internet using the Nmap and using the different services like Google searching and the showdown. So we analyze how many of SAP services are exposed to the internet, because many people think that the SAP can be available only inside the company, but actually nowadays it's not true. So it's like 5,000 different services, uh, management services can be found in the internet in the different locations. So if you're interested more, you can download this from erpscan.com. The SCP Security in Figures. It's a global survey of uh, different things. So yeah, and of course every slide now must contain some kind of shortened search. It's like a trend. So here's like results how many SCP portals we found in Switzerland by the Google and by search engine. But I suppose there are more than this number. And what is special about the SAP portal is like the gate to the internal network, because the portal is usually connected with the different internal systems and even with the SCADA and MES systems. And it's like when you, and usually the portal can be accessed through the internet. So if you break the SAP portal, you can go through the links to the internal systems, and sometimes the links have the passwords in itself. Sometimes they use the single sign-on authentication. So it's just a very critical system. This is how it looks like. So it's not so easy, and but the main things are, so the user connects to the J2E engine through the browser. So there is a J2E web application server. It's something like Apache Tomcat, but 100 times complex. And also the portal connects to the different services in internal network, like the SAP, the ERP systems, like databases, web applications. So it's kind of all the systems inside the company. And it stores the users in a database in LDAP, and there are things like iViews, roles, and applications. So iViews is like the small parts, the smaller components of the portal, like web pages or portlets. Okay, so what can we do with all this stuff? How can we uh, break the SAP portal? So the thing is that this topic was collected during our different engagements for the SAP portal uh, hacking. And so all the things are like from the real penetration test. So, and first of all, it's the SAP Management Console. It's like the service to manage the SAP server remotely. And yeah, so it have a like logs and traces, and as any of the systems. And the interesting thing that we found the JStation ID of the authentication in the logs, but it only when the trace level is on, but we found it in production systems, so it means that some people use it trace on the production systems. So the thing is, in JStation ID is stored on the log files, but how can you get access to the log files? It's probably you need to have credentials or access to the system, but actually it's wrong. So there is a remote interface. You can send the SOAP request for read the log file. So you just send the SOAP request without authentication and read this kind of log file and get all the JStation IDs. Then you copy JStation ID into your cookie and connect to the SAP portal. It's very easy. So it was the first option, but mostly it works inside the company because MMC services not very often can be accessed through the internet. Now the next thing is a very known issue. It's a single sign-on issue. It's like when you implement the single sign-on, the user is like connecting to the authentication proxy and send some kind of credentials. Then the Active Directory or something like that check the authentication and send the same request, but it only adds the header to the HTTP, like SSO header and the name of the user, like SSO header administrator. So and nothing else. So it means that the attacker, this header is known. So you just need to put the SSO header and the name of the user, like administrator. And the thing is, if the enterprise portal can be accessed directly, not through the authentication proxy, so you can add this header to your HTTP request, and you will be authenticated like administrator just by adding this simple header. And yeah, so you need to implement the firewall. So if you use it as single sign-on, you should put the single sign-on first, and the firewall, and then the SAP portal. Okay, so next area is J2E server itself. And there are some critical issues. We were speaking about those issues before, but anyway, they are very useful for breaking the SAP portal. So the access to the J2E application is controlled with the WebXML and J2E Engine XML. So speaking about the WebXML, there is a known vulnerability that we found, and we were presenting in the previous Black Hat. So the thing is, when you have some kind of critical service, which is in the admin folder, and you have the restrictions listed here. And for example, for admin folder, only the get method is can be sent by the administrator role. But the thing is, what happens if you send the head method? There is no head method in the restriction, so it means that everybody can send the head request. It's a very stupid bug, but it works. So, and the thing is, if you delete the get method, it means that by default all the methods are restricted. But if you list at least one method, it means that you care only about the get method. So you should, and the idea was to find some kind of services, and there are about 500 services installed by default in the J2E engine. So the idea was to find at least some kind of service which can be exploited by head request, and it must be some kind of interesting vulnerability because head is only making something and don't get you the information. So it's for tampering vulnerability, and yeah, you need just send the head method, and we found the application called web service called CTC. It's like service for controlling all the J2E engine. You can create user, you can assign user to role, you can manipulate the operation system commands, so kind of everything. And so everything can be done with a two-head request, like first head request create user, and second head request assign him to administrator. Like two head requests to the internet portal service, and you're in it. Yeah, so there are some security notes from the SAP, and you can usually prevent it. And the second issue about the web XML, again, and okay, you listed all the methods, you do it well, but there is some. So if you call the admin critical action, you cannot do this without authentication because it's restricted. But there is a functionality which called invoker servlet to call any servlet by the class name. So it means if you call this servlet using this request, you can do this. Yeah, it calls invoker servlet. So what you can do is again attack the CTC even if it's the previous vulnerability is dispatched. And yeah, so our idea was to think what can we do additionally. So if we break SAP portal, we wanted to make some kind of attacks into internal network, and yeah, so we were looking on this operation system access. So yeah, you have easily make operation system access with a special command like execute command with a cmd line. So you can do pretty everything, and in Windows this service is running on the SAP service which have the administrator rights. So yeah, so okay, so everything it will be like how to break portal without breaking portal. But let's talk about the portal itself. And what is the portal? It's like the collection of the different objects, like iViews and users and roles and this kind of stuff. And it's like the big directory called portal content directory, and all access to the objects is based on ACL. And there are two types of access, like design time is when you have administrator access, and runtime is just for users. So it's like three different permission levels, and if you assign the user permission level for like administrator permissions, he can do pretty everything. And there is also end user permissions. It's like if you have access to the iView or don't have access to the iView. Yeah, so the end user permissions is pretty easy. So you can make disable it or enable it. User have access or don't have access. And yeah, and also there is the thing like the security zones, but I will talk about a little bit later. And yeah, the administrator permissions, you can make all the kind of permissions like owner and full control and etc. And there are also role signal permissions, like if the user can assign different users roles to those components. And yeah, it's not too so easy to understand all the things because it's just the beginning. And also there are security zones. So speaking easy is like if you have many iViews and you want to assign the different users roles to these iViews, you put them all into the security zone, like you've put files on the folder. That's it. And yeah, the security zone is specified by the vendor ID, like security area is like name of the zone is safety level. So it's like who can get access to this zone. Yeah, it's listed in the Portal Labs XML application. And yeah, one iView can be assigned only to one security zone. And so if user want to have access to the iView, first of all, the end user permissions are checking. And if you add the security zone permissions, which is additional, it's not the default. So first of all, the end user permissions are checking, and then the security zone permissions are checking. But it looks like secure. But the thing is, you can access to the iViews directly, bypassing the end user role permissions. So it means that the only security zones will be checked. And security zones are not configured by default. And there are different safety levels in security zones. So it's like who can get access to the different security zones. So the most interesting is the no safety and low safety, because no safety is like everybody can get access without any rights. Low safety is like every user can get access. And medium is like some kind of users, and high safety is more restricted. So our idea was to find if there are really some kind of iViews that are assigned to no safety and low safety. And yes, so we found during the many tests it really exists in a corporate installation. So there are no safety applications, and in some of that applications they can be like critical ones, and they also can have the vulnerabilities. So some of the applications we can find this simple cross-site scriptings and etc. So yes, this really works, and it's not so easy to understand and configure properly. That's why it sometimes can be issues. So yeah, the thing is you need to check the security zone permissions. Okay, so what kind of other things we can find in the SAP portal? Actually, pretty everything, like in every other application. So shame on me, it's 2012 and we're still talking about the cross-site scripting, but here is like okay, we have a cross-site scripting, we can get the cookie, but sometimes it's HTTP only. But the interesting thing is like the portal have special API which called APCF, and it's like JavaScript API for calling. First of all, for calling different objects, and the second is to transfer the data between the different iViews. Data and the different objects between the iViews. So you can do like the cross iView scripting and kind of like this, because there are different objects for the different iViews, and they can store the critical data. So by the cross-site scripting, you can download those objects, the PTF objects. So that's more interesting than the simple cross-site scripting. And the second thing is the portal have the knowledge management documents. It's like the folder of the documents, the simple documents with like doc files, Excel files, and TXT files. And many administrators don't disable the default functionality. So it means that first of all, you can read most of the documents which are on the public folders, and the second of all, you can create your own documents, and you can create the HTML page and insert the XSS in the HTML page. It's not an XSS, it's like you can insert the JavaScript in the HTML page, and you can create any kind of page like a phishing page and send this to the user. And yeah, it's pretty simple, but it works. And the second thing is, like we found a directory traversal in the SAP portal, so you can read any kind of files. It works like this, but we send it information to the SAP. It was closed, but and we came again to the same company to make the next assessment. So we have the quartal-based assessments, and we checked this directory traversal, and it was still working. And we asked, "Did you install the patch?" They said yes. So we were surprised. And the thing was that it was not properly patched, so they just deleted the denied the // things. So you can easily call the direct like file like etc password. So you can call the files from the root directory without making the // But this one already patched. But you know, that's not many people are installing. Okay, so let's talk about something interesting, more relevant to the SAP portal. And yeah, we found the file which is storing the user and the password for access to the J2E engine. And we found another file which stored the key, and we know the algorithm is this. So the thing was to get access to this file. And okay, how could we read the file? Directory traversal we already used. The else command execute web tampering. So we already used. What we can do is to the XML external entity, and but it's not so very common external entity. So look at this. It's like a response from the SAP portal. It's like typical response when you, for example, click on the portal menu. You get this stuff. What the hell is that? When we firstly found this, so it was like 100 parameters in the request, and it's so totally crazy. So we were looking at that, and we can't understand anything. So it's like this is this APCF API. So then how it works. So it's like to go to the next page, you need to send the 100 parameters and with different crazy stuff. And while we were analyzing this, we found the interesting thing like XML version. So one of those 100 parameters is exactly the XML file. It's like XML in the parameter. And we saw different parameters that contain some kind of Java classes. So it's like the crazy weird thing. So yeah, we was successfully exploited this XML with using the XXE vulnerability. But the problem was that it is like error-based XXE, so you see like we can't restore the text ID with blah blah blah, and here's the source of the file. Okay, so now we can read any kind of files, And the passwords, here are the passwords stored in this file. And so this is the configuration, sorry, this configuration file. This is security file, and this is the key file. So in security file looks like this. We have some kind of uh, password, which is encrypted. And we have the access to the key. So we can easily decrypt this using the algorithm, which is this, and the key and the password. And then we can get access to the J2E login and password and get access to the whole SAP portal. And okay, so what about the post-exploitation? What you can do then? Um, how many of you know what's a server-side request forgery? Oh, really? That's cool. Okay. Uh, so it's like the kind of attack which we were presenting in the previous Black Hat. So let's suppose you have the portal service, which can be accessed uh, for everybody. Then you have a firewall, and then you have some kind of ERP system or anything other, and you cannot access to this system because it's under the firewall. But the portal can get access to this system because they need to somehow interact with each other. So the server-side request forgery is like the idea of this is to find some kind of service. Let's look here. So you need to find some kind of service here which will transmit your request to this service. Maybe not all requests, maybe just part of request. And maybe with some modifications, but the idea is like this. And yeah, the harder thing is to to find this service. And so details can be found in our Black Hat talk, but speaking fastly, you can use the XXE vulnerability, where we in the XML external entity you can call the HTTP. You can make the HTTP requests to the other services, like to internal network. But what we found, there is a Gopher, this pretty old protocol, and yes, so using this protocol, you can send any application level request. So you construct, everything you put after this slash, it's like it's application. You can construct the application level packet. Because if you make the HTTP request, it's like it automatically make the get and then the string that you do. But if you use a Gopher, so all you like to put AAA, and it sends the application level packet with AAA. So you can transmit every exploit through the Gopher protocol, so and any application level. So you can exploit the different operation system vulnerabilities, the SAP vulnerabilities, and yeah, you can even bypass different SAP restrictions. And what's more interesting, you can exploit the local host vulnerabilities. So if you have the service on the local host, which can be accessed remotely, you can send the XML packet with the Gopher call to the internal IP, to the local host IP address and local host port. And usually the local host services are not so secured like remote services. Yeah, and the next post-exploitation is very funny. So there is a knowledge management, and there is a functionality to search in this knowledge management. And if you put some kind of password in this search, you can find a lot of interesting information in the documents containing the password, etc. Because you know the portal is like the key for all your infrastructure. So everybody it's for storing documents. So everybody is storing all the documents in SAP portal. So it means that you can find any kind of interesting thing, like you can search for the confidential document like this, and yeah, if you find some kind of passwords, you can uh, use the SSRF with the groover to connect to some kind of internal services. So you don't even need to uh, get access to the operation system of the portal, install some kind of shell, and make a next step. You can do every kind of malicious activity through the portal without installing anything on it. So it's very stealthy attack. Uh, so it's kind of unfinished, probably faster than it should be, but so yes, it's possible to secure the SAP system, uh, and SAP is working on this area, and we're helping them. But nowadays it's like the more on the customer side, so like customers should implement the patches, because what we see is like SAP becoming more and more secure, but in the corporate implementations, we still see the systems like which were installed 5 years ago and with this stupid vulnerabilities. And the one more thing, like everybody was asking the one question: how many real attacks on FTP system do you see? This was the main question of everybody, because yeah, we can speak about this a lot, but what is a real threat? And the thing is, 3 days ago, there was news like the anonymous cracked the Greg finally. So yeah, usually I don't put this kind of slides on my presentation like many people do, but it's like the first attack using the 0 day in SAP system. So the anonymous say that they have the 0 day for SAP, and they use it for they exploited the Greek finance ministry, and they exposed a lot of critical data using passwords and the documents. So this is the example of the first real attack on the SAP system. So I don't know, and the thing is, they have this exploit, so they can use it on the other systems. And yes, now the answer is there are threats. And yeah, if you're interested in more presentation about the SAP system vulnerabilities and also other things, we will be speaking in those presentations. And we also organize a conference which called Zero Nights, which will be in Russia in November. It's a pretty interesting conference with a lot of good people in the hardcore stuff. And yeah, thank everybody. If you have any questions, I will answer them.